Ryan.
Today, we are learning basketball with Stone Hansen. He covers the NBA draft, the LA Lakers, co-host of Upside Swings with Cooper Klein and Bryce Hendrick. You can find him on Lakers Fast Break, and his work has been featured all over ESPN Radio, USA Today, NBA.com, and he does some great work covering the Lakers, covering the draft. Can't wait to dive in today. And first of all, how are you doing today, Stone?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to survive the Christmas traffic, but other than that, it's been pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Can't wait to talk some hoops. And I wanted to kind of start off hearing a little bit about your background, your journey, your path covering hoops. What got you into this, and where do you kind of base your process of watching the sport we all love?
Yeah. I've been a lifelong basketball fan, really. So I've always gravitated towards it. I've been playing since I was like 2. And I started really getting into the draft specifically. I've been watching basketball since I was probably like 7 or 8, or at least understanding what I was watching when I was like 7 or 8. But as far as the draft, the 2015 draft is my first year doing draft work. I'd like to think I'm much better at evaluations when I first started, but I really got into it because I'm a huge fan of strategy. I just love anything strategy, and I feel like the best aspect or the widest lens when it comes to strategy and basketball is the draft. I feel like it involves the most strategy and the most both for teams and for how you are building out a team and how you evaluate players. So I just really gravitated towards it, and each year I kind of got more and more into it. I think I started doing upside swings in 2020 or 2021, and since then we've been having a lot of fun doing it. I feel like because of that, and just we talk about prospects really in depth, and because of that, I feel like I've gotten better just talking through players and with my co-hosts, and it's made me a better evaluator, I feel like. So anytime I get the chance to talk with other people and share opinions and bounce ideas off of other people, I feel like I come away a little bit smarter about a certain player or about basketball. So I love this concept of your show, and I think that basketball podcasts in general have helped me out a lot. The first podcast I ever listened to is actually, some people listening might know it, but it was Ode to Odin with Sean Darenthal, and that was the very first podcast that got me into any sort of draft content. That was sort of what sparked my idea of, this is like a really cool aspect of basketball. I want to dig into it more. And because of that, now we've been doing upside swings, and I have a lot of fun each year going through a bunch of different prospects.
Yeah, and shout out to Upside Swings. I just saw a big announcement. Y'all are headed to the Center Hub that's powered by Cerebro Sports. And, Cerebro just has one of the best databases when it comes to high school hoops, especially just any event, any game you can think of. You can find data on there. Shout out to that whole team. They do incredible work kind of covering the sport and just making data accessible for youth basketball. That makes it a lot easier to kind of like view the scouting landscape from the ground up and be able to make evaluations through the entire pipeline of a player's development from early on through in high school through and then through college, and help get the whole picture. So what kind of led to working with Upside Swings, and what kind of projects do you see yourself working on with that team kind of this season?
Yeah, for sure. We have been independent since we started. It's just been sort of us three, and we enjoy it, and we love it. And even with the Center Hub, it'll still be us three at the core. We'll be continuing the show, and it'll be us three, our own ideas, and our own prospects and the way we think about them just bounce between us three. But we will be doing more collaborations with certain big boards or mock drafts, different exercises, and there's more, I think, more window of opportunity when you join a sort of draft conglomerate in terms of access to different things or in different resources, different people that we didn't necessarily have before. Maybe that'll lead to in the future of Upside Swings more like player interviews. I know people tend to be interested in what players have to say about themselves off the court necessarily. Not everything they do on the court, but who they are as a person, I think, is important too. And more things like that. I think it just there's a lot more windows of opportunity and pathways for Upside Swings. We have a couple show concepts in the works of maybe weekly or biweekly episodes that will sprinkle in with our player analysis that I think most people tune in for. Is just once we get to the deep dives on players, I think is sort of our bread and butter. But I think we have some exciting ideas for other concepts of episodes to mix in with that. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty excited. I think for a long time now, we've sort of been on the search for something like that where we can just sort of expand as evaluators and sort of push ourselves to think about things in a broader scope and less so about just prospects day in and day out, which we still love doing. But I think this allows us to think about things in a new light and hopefully explain other things to people who maybe only listen to our analysis of players.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to wanting to kind of interview more players as well and try to hear their perspectives. I think people definitely want to hear what the actual players are thinking and want to know what they're kind of working on, what their development looks like. I know I'm grateful I got the opportunity to go scout the 2024 Sunshine Classic just this past weekend at Mount Verde Academy and was able to interview some of the Brewster players, Sebastian Wilkins, Preston Fowler, Ibuka Okori, and it was just cool to actually hear their perspective because I'm watching the game and I have all my thoughts of kind of what they're good at, what they're skilled at, and so I can kind of ask them about that. But then you learn about what their thinking is, what their process is, what their goals are as a development wise, and what they think they're already good at, what leads to their decision making, with college decisions, and it's always nice to kind of hear the players' answers, and sometimes not even with them, but just in general, you might get some coach speak or player speak that you think every coach and player kind of has an answer for, but it turns out that's not always a bad thing because there are a lot worse things that people can kind of say, and it's okay to have your head straight and be considered like a normal athlete that has a normal background because normal can be pretty good when you're trying to find a level-headed kid that is trying to make his way in basketball and has his priorities in order. And so, normal's underrated when it comes to that kind of stuff. But so yeah, definitely excited to hear, you guys break into that a little more and your podcast in general. Can't wait to hear the draft coverage as we get closer. And speaking of the draft, I thought we could hop into some of the prospects that may have caught your eye for this upcoming draft. I know before the pod, we were talking about some Duke guys, some Rutgers guys, and I thought maybe we could definitely discuss them. But you were telling me that Noah Penda has really popped out for you. So, what is it about Penda's game that, makes you excited as an NBA draft prospect?
Yeah, for sure. And in full transparency for people, like I take a lot of time to watch prospects. So I haven't watched necessarily, probably even like 30 guys at this point. I sort of take my time. It takes a lot of film for me to feel comfortable having an opinion on a player. And I don't do this full time, so I don't have as much time as I'd like to be able to do that. But that said, with Penda, like he's someone that I have really gravitated towards. I watched him very briefly last year. I didn't feel comfortable having an opinion last year because I only watched like one or two games maybe. But this year he's really popped for me. He's someone I think is extremely versatile on both ends. And that's sort of what I tend to gravitate towards is can you do enough things well in enough areas to be a really solid player without a ton of holes. I think the less holes typically the better in someone's game. And for Penda, I think he has really strengthened a lot of his weaknesses from last year, especially as a shooter, I think is the big thing. I think he's shooting near 41% now from three, somewhat minimal attempts. I think it's only on like 40 to 60 attempts, somewhere in there. But he's, really gotten comfortable with his touch. Um, Somebody that is comfortable putting the ball on the floor and can really uh, exploit mismatches because he's built very well. I think he's around 6'8". If I had to guess, probably like 230 looking. Just a really solid, strong build, and I think that a guy who can. The finishing hasn't been great, but he's getting to the rim quite a bit. And if you're getting there a lot, you have an opportunity to rep out a lot of things. Um, so the fact that he can put the ball on the floor, dribble a bit, and shoot now, seemingly, hopefully it sticks. I think really makes him, a versatile guy you can use in a lot of ways on offense. And the biggest thing for me on both ends is that he just rarely makes mistakes. And I think that's what's most eye popping for me with him is that this is someone coaches I think are going to be very comfortable giving early minutes to because he's just very competent on both ends without making a ton of young guy mistakes that you might typically see. He's very mature in the way that he approaches the game and the way that he places himself on the floor. I think that it's someone I really gravitate towards personally as a prospect because that's sort of the players I tend to value a lot, but also just in terms of the growth that he has had from last season, I think really stands out. So he's someone that to me is looking like a top 10 caliber type guy, but I have to watch enough guys to really rank anybody at this point.
Yeah, and I also probably haven't seen enough of him. I can definitely watch some more tape of Penda, but I was watching his synergy clips preparing for this conversation a little bit, and from what I've seen, what stood out right away is his energy movement off the ball, his physical attributes, like almost like the stampede idea of starting to move before you even have the ball and like expecting the pass to be coming and making that decision of what you're going to do with it before you even have the ball, attacking closeouts on the move, just constant energy, making cuts with a head of steam. That good off ball relocation movement really stood out. And then his connected passing, throwing some zip on these passes, that definitely stood out as well. And like, maybe threw a little too much zip at times, I guess, where it might have hit, coming in a little fast to the receiver, but just constantly trying to move the ball and move off the ball. And then he flashed some catch and shoot 3-point range, showed some strong play finishing at the rim, really a force on the glass, like just using his strength and athleticism to like fight for offensive rebounds in traffic and then get them put back in, either throwing a strong dunk as a play finisher or a little bit of touch, but could probably, like you mentioned, develop that touch even more. But I caught his last two games and thought that there's definitely some impressive traits here to see where he goes. And some quick synergy stats. He's scoring 1.08 points per possession on 49 spot ups for Le Mans. It rates very good for synergy, 70th percentile. And then some of that off-ball play finishing, 1.3 PPP on 12 cuts, kind of a small sample, but rates 70th percentile. And then 1.2 PPP on 15 putbacks, rates 59th percentile. So some positive scoring efficiency, especially off the ball in that role so far. So definitely worth keeping an eye on, see how high he can rise on draft boards. I think he's being projected maybe lower first round pick at the moment from what I've seen around draft Twitter and mock drafts, but things change fast and there's reason to like it.
Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.
And so, shifting to some of the other prospects, like I'd love to dive into some of these Rutgers guys because I haven't really been able to talk much about them on the pod yet. Dylan Harper looks like just, walking bucket. Like to me, he's kind of etched out a clear number 2, top 3 type of pick for the NBA draft. And there's some other guys like, obviously Ace Bailey started off that high. We'll see if he still gets picked that high after kind of a rough opening, but still shows a lot of, winning basketball traits. And Kasparis has also kind of moved up to that tier for me, and we'll see. Things happen fast, but in terms of right after Flagg, who is in that second tier. And to me, it's Dylan Harper's spot to lose at the moment. Like he's shown like scoring versatility, explosiveness to the rim, can pull up three, catch and shoot three, drive, finish at the rim, nice touch, just a lot to like as kind of a lead scoring guard in Dylan Harper's game. So, we can hit on Ace as well, but what has stood out to you about Harper's game so far with Rutgers?
Yeah, just that I think he's very comfortable in a variety of situations as a ball handler, as a scorer. This is a guy that has really popped as a versatile shooter to me. I was watching the other day, and it's just he's very rhythmic in his dribbles and footwork, and when he's feeling it in transition, there's no doubt like it's going to go in because he has these foot patterns that he matches with his dribbles that really get him into position. He's very comfortable off the catch as a shooter, but then also off the rip. Like doesn't have crazy burst like someone like a Scoot or anything, but he is very strong, and he has enough speed to be able to create some of that separation and draw fouls or get close enough to the rim to where you're really sucking in defenses and he can, pass out of it. Some of his passes have been incredible. In this class, for me, there's not really any sort of elite sort of visionary with the ball, in my opinion. But I think Harper is as close to that as you can get, where he's making a lot of really nice touch passes. In terms of the touch he's putting on them to teammates, he's passing out of double teams really well because a lot of teams are starting to double him to try and impact his scoring. So he's really impressed me. Defensively too, he's held his own a lot. He struggles off of screens still, which is I think the case for most guys coming into the NBA. But he's big enough where I think he can start to handle that over time. He's got good vision on both ends, I think. I think that's something we tend to, as evaluators, sort of only look as ball handlers and evaluate how they're seeing the game when they have the ball in their hands. But he's good at seeing the floor when he doesn't have the ball in his hands in offense and also off the ball in defense. I think he moves to the correct places and knows just how to fill the correct spots on the court. So yeah, I've really enjoyed watching Harper this season. For me, I think I'm not ready to open and shut Flagg as the clear number one in this class. I mean, I think he's definitely there for me right now, but I think there's very much a possibility I could end this cycle with Harper as my number one. So I'm interested to see how the season continues on because it's still early, but I've enjoyed what I've seen so far from him.
Hey, I like the somewhat hot take. Just you believe in what you see, and Flagg's getting that love, and deservedly so. I think his defense is special. It is just a monster defender. Does so many different things, but if you want to talk just pure offense bucket getting, I mean Dylan Harper seems to be that standout type of guy where he can score in so many different ways. Against Wagner early in the season, he's hitting a step back pull up three, lefty jumper out of horns, and a nice up and under finger roll, switching hands finish at the rim, throwing quick active hands for deflection, creating space with the decelerating footwork, point of attack steal, and accelerating through traffic for the finger roll. Nice vision, soft touch lead pass to the backdoor cutter. Just some notes I took on that game. Like he's just like you mentioned, maybe not like the craziest burst, but still some explosiveness at 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan, who can shoot, create for others, create for himself, score on a whim, good decision making on the wraparound pass to the roller. And then him and Ace Bailey both played really well against Alabama. I thought that was one of Ace's best games so far in the collegiate level. And for Harper, he again showed some explosiveness to the rim with a finger roll finish, hit the mid-range, pulled up jumpers just about anywhere on the floor, downhill lefty finish, goes right for the quick acceleration, has the ball handling to cross over, and like you mentioned, the ball steals and the footwork to kind of like create his own look, whether it's the crossovers, whether it's hunting contact for an and one bump and finish through contact. He's a special scorer, and like he also hangs his hat on the defensive end too. So like you're looking at a two-way impact type of guy that could be, relatively primary offensive option for a team at the next level, and that gives you a lot to like, especially at the top of the draft. And then shifting over to Ace, I thought some things that are positive that stood out to me was obviously the tough shot making. He might not have the best footwork and handle to actually create those shots consistently, but when he gets a good look and gets enough space and does have that advantage, maybe a mismatch in the post or just enough room to get off his shot, he can make some tough shots from mid-range, from the three. He can hit, catch, and shoot threes. And what really stood out is his defense and his rebounding. Like he's making mean blocks on help defense. Some good reads here and there. Especially against Alabama, where he'll hit a corner 3-point assist as he was falling to the floor, and a breakaway steal and power slam on one pick six type of a play, and just that athleticism and two-way instincts really, I think, stood out the most of some of the tools that he'll be able to bring. And then his kind of like his shot release, I guess, is pretty impressive. How he can kind of get off at different angles as he's rising and firing for jumpers. It's not like static. Like he can, pretty much create that angle however he needs to do it and get his shot off, which is pretty impressive to me in terms of the shot, just getting the shot off in the first place, let alone actually making it as well. So what has stood out to you for Ace Bailey and Rutgers?
Yeah, definitely for me, a lot of what you're saying, like the athleticism has really stood out to me. I think that's probably the biggest thing that pops for like a 6'9", 6'10" type of guy. I think he's really fluid as an athlete, and I think there's actually room for him to grow in that fluidity as an athlete. I think that it looks like someone who is still getting used to how tall they are at times, and I think that there's room for that to improve, actually. And because of that, I think there's more opportunity for him defensively. Defensively, I've been pretty impressed. This is a guy I think that can play a variety of positions. Like you feel comfortable with him out on the perimeter in isolation, but then you also feel comfortable with him as an off-ball low man, being that sort of help side rim protector. He's so athletic that I think if he gets beat, he's going to be really able to insert himself back into plays and recovery. So there's a lot of that's impressive as a rebounder, obviously, too. And he's still so thin that I think there's a lot of room for that rebounding to evolve and increase and improve because there's a lot of muscle to be put on for him. The offense is really what has held me back from comfortably putting him in the top three. I would say right now he's sort of like on the cusp of 3-4 right now for me, but the offense is interesting because it's very evident that he's a talented shot maker. The process is the big issue for me, where you are seeing a lot of times he's locked in on scoring. It's very clear. Like he's at times the blinders are very much on, and he's not seeing his teammates, which is sort of a tough pill to swallow for me because I'm very much a share the ball type guy when I'm watching guys. But at the same time, he's making these tough shots, and if you're making them, or maybe they're not that tough shots. It's sort of the chicken or the egg thing when it comes to these type of guys. But you do want cleaner looks. You do want more open looks. I think he's capable of getting them because I don't think the handle is terrible for how big he is. But it's a matter of, stop falling into this sort of complacency where he knows he can make these tough shots when better shots can be made. And I think a lot of the tough shots that he's taking right now in college are just not going to be as easy for him in the NBA. And I think it'll be a lot more difficult for him to find that little bit of space that he's able to right now. I think the big thing for me is if he can really sort of grow his game in terms of seeing the court a bit more and really using his athleticism to propel him towards better shots and towards the rim more often, because he can get there. I think it's not a matter of, is he capable of doing so? It's a matter of, is he capable of thinking he can do it? I think is the bigger thing. And I think once he sort of gets passed over that hurdle, we're sort of seeing a big evolution of who he is as a player. And I think that is what's really the key for me as the season goes on is how much more comfortable can he get as a driver as opposed to someone that's falling complacent with open shots in the mid-range.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of kind of his pros and cons as a prospect, and definitely that shot creation ability and kind of tunnel vision might hurt him a little bit, and it's definitely kind of been a negative as through the college games so far. But there's still time, and he started off high for a reason, and I think that ultimately these NBA front offices value some of the tools that he has shown, and that will keep his stock pretty high. And yeah, I'm right there with you where it might not be top 3 anymore, but for me, but maybe in that lottery for sure, and could possibly be top 5, top 7 in that when it's all said and done. Because when you're a tall wing that brings defense and tough shot making and rebounding, you're doing a lot of things right, and especially if you can hit the catch and shoot 3, bring a little D&3 value, that role projects to the NBA pretty straightforwardly, and then someone is likely to talk themselves into the potential of the tough shot making, most likely. And then we kind of saw, now not a direct comp, but kind of saw something similar with Jabari Smith, where he kind of has a little trouble creating his own shot, and that hasn't necessarily translated in terms of a number 1 option. But like he still brings a lot of winning two-way impact, traits to basketball, where the defense, the threes, the tough shot making as well, like in the post up mismatch and things like that, like pretty much all translate to some level. So I think it's a case of expectations, and like if you are expecting a star potential to be reached, there's a chance you're disappointed. But if you're looking at good two-way impact and then a little bit potential for more, then all of a sudden it's positive. So I could wish him the best the rest of the way, and that like he kind of rebounds from at least draft Twitter is giving him a hard time. Maybe it's not as big as I'm making it out to be right now, but he is obviously an exciting prospect, and Rutgers has 2 of the best prospects in the whole draft at the same time. It's a super exciting time to be a Rutgers fan, that's for sure. So switching over to Duke, I thought we could hit on some of the other guys that you've caught and that you're interested in, and just kind of what you're seeing. Obviously, Cooper Flagg, defensive ace, super versatile. To me, I think he has earned that, like, his own tier number 1 pick. Like, and everything has like a different meaning. Like it doesn't necessarily mean he's generational like Wembanyama or something like that, just because I think he's the clear number 1 pick in this draft. But I do think at least his defense doesn't necessarily come around too often, and just kind of everything he brings to the table. Like you're seeing a lot. Like to me, he's almost a complete player. Like if I want to get really nitpicky about some small things, like he's gotten a lot more reps as an on-ball initiator running pick and rolls for Duke than he ever has before. So that's settling some of my concerns for creating a offense for others as like a one-man offense. I think he'd probably ultimately be more of a kind of a play finisher, connector who can hit tough shots, who can spread the floor from 3 at the next level than like the one initiating everything every play. But like, that's a pretty small thing to nitpick when we're talking about like a guy that can create his own shot, can hit the drive and kick, can hit the open 3, hit the midi pull up, finish at the rim, show some post up counter moves, and like literally does everything defensively. Like he is everywhere all at once, racking up everything. So, what stood out to him and any other Duke, prospects that you've had your eye on?
Yeah, I think with Flagg, he's really been someone that is just he looks like an NBA player in college at this point. Like he looks like someone who is should be in the league already at this point, and is probably should.
Right.
But he is just very comfortable defensively and offensively of knowing what the right thing is to do all the time, similar to Penda, but just at a greater level, obviously, and very comfortable in making the right reads. Very calm, composed when he's doubled, and tends to always make the correct pass and reads out of that. I think defensively, the fact that you can use him in so many different ways, to me, versatility is inherently value. Like if you're versatile at being able to do a lot of different things, that just inherently makes you more valuable. And so for Flagg, it obviously makes him extremely valuable because I think you can play him basically every position defensively. Against some fives, he might struggle, but I think for the most part, you're feeling comfortable with him wherever he is on the court. So I think the fact that he's got such quick hands, he has textbook like post defense for his age, especially. The footwork is impeccable. He knows exactly when to rip at balls without fouling. Like he's got the timing of everything down. It looks like he's just he executes everything so well, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from Flagg is he is textbook, like whatever they teach you as a kid growing up on, this is how you should play basketball. He does it and then he executes it like perfectly. So I think all the fundamentals, when you talk about like your classic how you grew up playing basketball and the fundamentals youth coaches and things teach you, like he's got all of that down to a T. I think as a passer, there's room for the accuracy to improve, but in terms of the vision, it's all there. As a shooter, I think that there's room for that to improve. I'm not worried on him ever being like a complete non-factor as a shooter. Like I think he's going to be completely fine, and someone that as time goes on will grow more confident in his shot as it develops, and the ability to get to the rim and then have that three where you can draw guys further out and for him get to the rim even easier, I think is only going to expand and grow his game. So I've been really impressed with him. Really, the only Duke guy I haven't watched is at least in depth is Knuppel. I tend to watch one guy per game, like just focus on that one guy each game. So I haven't gotten around to Knuppel yet, but the rest of the guys are totally fair game, and I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on who they are as prospects.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean with Flagg, like you said, defensive versatility, defensive instincts, switchable, lockdown defender, forces turnovers, steals and blocks. Like I don't know what else one could really want when he has the size to pretty much guard 1 through 5s, like you said, maybe not the biggest 5s, but like, other than that, he's doing everything you can want. He could very well be, one of the best defenders, especially on the wing, that the league has seen in a long time. And then offensively, he can score just about any way that you want as well. And like maybe he can fine tune the handle, maybe he can improve his reads where he's able to create for others more consistently as well. But in terms of himself, like he's hitting pull-up threes, he's crossing up for a pull-up midi. When he sees a double or draws people into the paint, he's hitting the kick out for the three. He'll counter post moves with spinning fadeaways and then pump fake the spin fade and spin again right towards the rim for the finish at the rim. Strong play finisher. Like he's been showing just about all these skills going back to Mount Verde and now at Duke. So, clearly to me, the number one pick will be him when it's all said and done. But, things can change, and especially with how much Harper has shown, it only takes one team to make that call. And, we could hit on just about any Duke players that you want. We were talking about Khaman Maluach before the pod a little bit. And what stood out to me for him so far is you kind of know what you're getting with the big man post-up defense. Like he brings some traditional big man defensive traits, like his defensive instincts, the way he is able to keep his hands tall without fouling, maybe one hand on the ball level and one hand straight up, able to like possibly get a deflection with the one hand and then contest with the other hand if he doesn't. That really stood out to me. Strong rim roller, good positioning for on the offensive glass for putbacks, and just really like sound defensive position, knows where to be on both ends when he's setting the screens or going for rebounds or trying to post up or rim roll, I should say. And, just super active on the glass. Obviously, also played for the South Sudan team, where they had some kind of a feel-good story overseas during the Olympics for their quick rise to competitiveness after not really having much history with professional basketball. And shout out to Luol Deng for kind of investing in that entire country's basketball program and helping build them up. So, what has stood out to you about Maluach?
Yeah, and to be honest, he's probably the easiest guy in this draft for me to evaluate. Like, it's very clear what he's good at, what he needs to improve on, and who he is as a player. Like, he's the dream for any evaluator, because you're not waking up in the middle of the night thinking about who is this player. You know exactly who he is. The touch has been really impressive to me as a finisher. Like, I think he's just got great touch around the rim. Whether that expands out to three, I feel like I need to watch more to really be confident in that. But the touch as a finisher has really stood out to me offensively. I think as a screener, he's been excellent. He's setting like these, sort of Donovan Kling and bone crunching type screens because he's so massive. I think that's just sort of to be expected, but also he's just really, he understands angles too as a screener. I think that's something that often gets overlooked. It's not just how hard you set a screen, but also how you're setting it for the defender to come off of it. Are you dictating this player to go the way you want them to as a screener? As a big thing, and I think he understands that. I think there's room for him to improve actually as a rebounder. I think he's so big that against a lot of his college opponents, he's able to just wrangle in boards because of his sheer size. But I think he can improve, especially defensively as a rebounder and in positioning wise. I think he establishes himself sort of late, like once the shot is pretty far close to the rim. And I think he can establish himself a bit earlier to become a better rebounder. I think that it seems, I don't know exactly when he started playing basketball, but it seems like it's relatively new-ish for him, just in terms of the way he sees things on offense and how he tends to not pull out of the paint when a driver is coming towards him. Like, I think that's something that is very easily fixable, but is something he still currently lacks at this point, where he's clogging the paint a lot of times when guys are trying to create space as they drive in. But I think that's something that's pretty easily coachable. So yeah, I mean, I like him. I think this is a guy I feel very comfortable as a NBA caliber center. That alone, if you feel confident that a guy's an NBA player, it's probably worth the top 20 pick. And I think there's room for him to be like a starting caliber guy. So I'm pretty intrigued by him. I think he's very simple, simplistic game, but simplicity doesn't mean negative in any sense. So I've enjoyed watching him. I enjoyed how easy he's made it in my life to be able to examine who he is. And I think that there's a lot of easily fixable things within his game.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you kind of target like a good basketball player, like not everyone in the draft is going to be a superstar. You have to be able to project role players, starters as well. And, there's a point in every draft where you stop necessarily star hunting and just start looking for a good basketball player that is going to translate to the league, who's going to bring two-way impact and have a defined role. And it's very clear that, his might be a traditional rim roller, rim protector, strong big man type that can rebound, set screens, and just be that anchor down low on both ends of the floor. And like you said, there's value in that. And maybe it ends up being like top 20, late lottery, somewhere in there. But, going to Duke, having those high quality traits, he's going to get himself drafted for all those reasons. And, wish him the best of luck. Was there anyone else on Duke that, stood out to you that you wanted to give a shout out to, like Sion James? His explosiveness really stood out to me. And Tyrese Proctor, just smooth pull-up jumper, has the handles to create space and hit the three, hit the midi, good two-way feel, kind of forcing turnovers with deflections and, good movement, flowing into the pick and roll with Khaman Maluach. And, they both kind of stood out to me, especially in the Kentucky matchup. But them or anyone else any other NBA prospects, I should say, as well, that kind of have caught your eye.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a quick shout out to Proctor. I think he's someone that he's long intrigued me as just sort of more of a backup NBA point guard, but I think that really the jump in 3-point percentage this year has impressed me. He looks way more comfortable as a shooter too, not just when you look at the numbers, but when you watch the games, you can tell he's more confident in his shot this year. I think it's up like 29%. I think I tweeted this out. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it's up like 29% in volume and it's 7% in efficiency, which is a really good sign. That's a pretty big increase. I think that with that opening up, it just opens up so much for him too as a floor general, someone that can dictate more out of the pick and roll. Life is just a lot easier for him in that regard. I think that he's someone that has struggled in the past to be able to find openings because he wasn't respected as much as a floor spacer and scorer, where I think some of that is opening up a bit now for him. But yeah, I mean, he intrigues me more of like a backup point guard type role. He's someone I probably wouldn't take first round, but he's definitely popped to me this year. As far as any other guys that have popped to me, like I think Murray-Boyles is someone I've had a lot of intrigue in this year. I actually didn't watch him really at all last year. I ran out of time and I wasn't going to waste time watching guys who weren't going to be in that draft. But this year, he's, I think, really impressed me in terms of just how confident he is defensively and the ways that you can use him. Like, it's hard to explain, but he's not a super versatile player with what he does with the ball or anything, but just the way that you can use him and deploy him on the court, I think, is very versatile. He's got great off-ball tracking instincts as a defender. Obviously, that massive wingspan allows him to cover any gaps as a recovery defender. Even though he's not like the most athletic guy, like if he gets beat out on the perimeter, I think his foot positioning is really good where he doesn't have to make up a ton of ground when he gets beat. And that long wingspan, I think, really helps him to recover. I think he's very good at establishing position as a rebounder. He does some of the traditional big man stuff, but I think the fact that he can sort of pull that out more to the perimeter without being like a major negative is somewhat intriguing to me defensively. He's a really good passer, I think, especially out of post-ups. And I think just as a finisher, like this is a guy who's going to get to the line, I feel pretty confidently, like quite often. I think he's just someone that really understands how to draw fouls, which at this age is not super common. But I think the fact that he already has that within his game and hopefully, the shot continues to grow for him and he can pull it out a bit further than he can currently. But he's someone that's really popped to me as, probably a top 10 type guy for me.
All right. We got to keep an eye on him the rest of the way, breaking into the top 10, no doubt. And so I thought we could kind of shift gears and move to the NBA. And, you cover the Lakers. Would love to dive into what's going on with them. To hit on some stats for them. They're 19th in point differential. They have the 11th best offense in the league, are 7th at not turning the ball over, 2nd at drawing fouls, 13th shooting efficiency, and then a little bit worse defensively. They're 24th in the league, but they are doing a good job at not fouling. They rank 4th at defensive free throw rate. And starting off, what do you make of JJ Redick's impact as the head coach so far? He's obviously implemented a lot of cool sets. Evan Gualberto does a great job of breaking down these sets on Twitter as well, where he's noted that JJ really loves to implement skip passes into his action. So we're seeing a lot of like cross court, half court passes to an open shooter, like in the opposite corner, maybe out of an AD post up or something. So that's been interesting to me. And then trying to get connect and open off a handoff even in the corner that you don't always see a DHO in the corner. So some of that, just sprinkling in some interesting different sets there. So what have you seen from JJ and any sets that you might might have caught your eye this
Yeah. Well, I think it's very stark because the last couple of years we haven't seen any sets,
year?
to be quite honest. So to be able to see sets, first of all, is just like a breath of fresh air. But also, I think some of his, or a good portion of his sets, I would say, are actually fairly simplistic. Like he's running horn sets, he's running, a lot of different Spain pick and roll, like simplistic things that we all know. But the fact that he's doing them sort of in different ways, and he's trying to do it in different ways with different players. The unfortunate part is we just don't have the personnel to really capitalize on a lot of these different variations of things. Like for example, he runs something we almost never ran the past 2 years, like even just an inverted pick and roll. But when you have guys like D'Angelo Russell setting a screen, it's just not as impactful because he's not as athletic and can't pop out to the 3-point line as quickly. So he's trying to, incorporate these things, which I think is really just a big positive for me. It's just we don't necessarily have the personnel to be able to capitalize efficiently on the creations that he's making. At this point, we have a lot of guys that have big limitations in certain areas, and I think that sort of limits how effective some of his sets can be. But I think the fact that he's just running them to begin with is really starting to get me excited, even though I know it's not going to lead to a championship, unfortunately. But and I think the other thing too is just his out of bounds plays calls have been really good for the most part, or out of timeouts, things like that. He's drawing up really solid plays in terms of like he'll have staggered screens across the court, going horizontal, where you're almost just like what you learn as a kid growing up, where you have one guy cut one way, one guy cut the other way, one right, one left, and simple things, but effective in the way that he's doing them because he's using the right guys to screen. You have AD Rui setting screens for guys to cut opposite directions. So things like that. I love what he's doing. I just wish we could do it better with better players.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, speaking of Rui, he's really impressed me in the games that I've caught. Like I wasn't expecting to be kind of so impressed by him in this role, but he's found a nice little role here as a plus defender that can go off for 20 any given night. He's playing heavy minutes, like some will 32 a night, I think, and sometimes up to 40. And he just shows some good winning basketball traits in the rotation as a solid scoring option. Maybe not the top, but might go off for 20 on a Tuesday or something, where he can score a little bit. He can make the right plays. He can make the right reads. He's got active hands defensively, where he can force a stop and then get the ball rolling, and strong screens, and like you mentioned, and yeah, like a blob set just the other day where Tim Legler noted that we're seeing a lot more kind of like baseline out of bounds screens that end up in layups at the rim because there's so much threatening players from outside that the defense is so concerned that they're just can't kind of get caught up chasing shooters around, and then there's a wide open paint for a Rui to just go backdoor real quick to the rim or something like that. So that's been impressive as well. And just wanted to give him a shout out because he's kind of been the standout of some of the games that I've caught so far, other than the obvious stars like Anthony Davis, leading scorer for the NBA for the first 3 weeks of the season. Maybe has settled back to earth a little bit, but that's still an all-star numbers with 28 points, 11 boards, 4 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks a game. He's currently 8th in scoring, 8th in rebounds, 7th in blocks, tied for 16th in EPM from dunks and threes. He might not. It looks like Wembanyama might be running away with the Depoy Award already, so it might be kind of tough to catch up there. But there's still an all-defensive team that can be had, and he's clearly one of these top guys in the league right now, where he's the lead scoring option for the team. Even if LeBron is still putting up 23, 8, and 9 assists with 4 turnovers, really embracing that point forward role that he's always been, but especially embracing the point aspect of it there. But what have you caught so far from the 2 stars in LA? Like what do you kind of expect the rest of the way and kind of see from AD and even LeBron this season as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, AD, I think we're seeing him in a different way because the past couple of years, our defense has slowly been built around this sort of funnel system of get everything to the rim and AD will just take care of it. Where I think this year it's been a lot more, let's have AD come out a little bit more and Rui can be more of a sort of a help side guy, or they're doing more switching, a lot more switching actually, that we hadn't seen before, which in theory I like, but when AD's farther away from the rim, we don't have that personnel to be a primary rim protector or a backup primary rim protector, especially with Hayes out. So it gets difficult. I think, like with LeBron, I think it's starting. The decline has. I think it's long slowly been starting, but I think it's a bigger drop off than we have seen in years previous. I mean, he's still playing insane for a 40-year-old, but I think that the fact that he is playing point guard is somewhat worrying to me because I think it's more out of necessity rather than luxury at this point. You're not playing him for spurts as point guard. It's pretty much the whole time he's in the game he's playing point guard, because I think he kind of has to be with this team. So I think we just don't have the personnel to do things the way that would be comfortable for me to make a deep playoff run. I don't think we want LeBron playing 36 minutes, consistently. I don't think we want AD to have to be in there every single game and be sort of this guy that has to defend 2 or 3 guys at any given time down the floor. The fact that they're capable of doing so is impressive, extremely impressive. But I think in an ideal world, those are not things that you want if you're looking to make a deep playoff run. So I personally don't think they even make the play in this year. Unfortunately, as a Laker fan, it pains me to say. I think we're headed for dark times once LeBron and AD leave, and I fear it's coming sooner rather than later. But they've been a ton of fun to watch while they've been here. As a Laker fan, I've been blessed with tons of great players in my lifetime to be able to watch. So they've done what they needed to. They won a championship here, and I've had a lot of fun with them. I think AD continues to be a top 3 defender in the league, no matter what his role is, really. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how they flip this page as the new chapter begins, and I'm somewhat excited for it. And I think with LeBron and AD, they've accomplished all you can as basketball players. So with that, I'm thankful, and I've had a lot of fun watching them in their careers over the years.
Man, we're just burying the Lakers. They're dead here on the pod.
I'm probably the least optimistic Laker fan you will come across.
Man, I mean, some of the indicators do kind of go with what you're saying. Only being 19th in point differential, and there's 12 teams that could really make the playoffs when you're looking at the standings here. I mean, even the Kings at the 12 seed are 12 and 13, but the Nuggets at the 7 seed are 12 and 10, and the Lakers are right in between there. And it could really kind of shake out any kind of way. And you got the Nuggets, Lakers, T-Wolves, Suns, Spurs, and Kings all in that mix for kind of the play-in hunting at the moment. And obviously it's still a little early, only about 20, 25 games into the season. So, things can change. But, yeah, so, RIP Lakers, who knew? It was just – it was happened so quick. But, I guess my next question would be: do you think that any deals are on the horizon that could kind of save things or save the season, or do you think it's kind of set? Because they have had some positives with Max Christie getting buckets. He's kind of had some nice moments for them, able to score a little bit. Obviously, Dalton Connect has had kind of an instant impact as a rookie, being able to shoot from 3, score a little bit. Obviously, had that kind of coming out party in the preseason, I think, where he hit all those threes, like scored like 35 or 38 or something like that. And he has shown some exciting traits. And they still have Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent that are playing. Reeves has had moments where he's looked like solid starter, can make winning plays on both ends, run the offense just a little bit. But so maybe there's a package there. Unless I'm not obviously there's a bunch of picks that are no longer with the Lakers because of all those big star trades. And I'm not really sure cap wise what they're able to do with the trades, but do you see any way to save the season for them?
Yeah, to save the season in terms of contention level, I don't see a pathway to, just because we don't have our picks. It really makes it tough. We have 2 post LeBron picks. I think they're probably more valuable than a lot of other random teams. Their 2 picks, so it might be worth something, but. I just don't see a star available and a star that is gettable for what we have to really put this team into contention mode. And I don't think we have the assets to really build this team out with by upgrading the role players and supporting cast around LeBron and AD. I don't think the assets are there for it. So I would rather keep the picks and just hold them and wait until this era ends, and hopefully we start fresh with a good player or 2 to build around. But I'm not super interested in putting all our chips in for one last ride in the hopes of contention, because I don't really think it's there for us anymore. I think the window's closed, unfortunately, but we'll see what they do. The Laker way is swing for the stars. That's what they're sort of built their brand on. So we'll see what happens. I think I don't know what they do. I don't. They've sent mixed signals in terms of how they value those picks and if they want to star or not. So we'll see.
Yeah, and in terms of around the league, I imagine Dalton Connect has shown some things that probably could be valued for another team as well. If you're Austin Reeves, maybe D'Lo has a big contract that he could kind of make some trades work in terms of just the salary and playable guys. But yeah, you're missing a lot of picks, so it would be pretty hard to upgrade without kind of giving up those last 2. And like you mentioned as well, there's not a ton of big stars out demanding trades right this moment that necessarily fit. I think there's rumors Jimmy Butler just kind of might be heading out. I don't know if he solves everything or anything necessarily, but he's another big name, another big star that would be at least make it exciting to keep watching. But yeah, like you said, I don't know if it's worth constantly mortgaging the future to go for the now, and how long you're gonna keep kind of knocking on that door. But shout out to the championship team. That defense was kind of a one of a kind in the bubble. You got AD, you had Dwight, the Jokic stopper, in a sense, giving him some trouble in the bubble as if that exists, but at least slowed him down a little back when Caruso was still on the team, and you had Rondo kind of playmaking. KCP was still on the team. I mean, really just a lot. JaVale McGee, a lot of defensive personnel, and maybe lost that identity a little bit. Just kind of did not remain the biggest team in the room once you lost some of those guys. So it's been tough kind of recovering from that. But shout out to that team. They did win it all. And, like you said, you got to experience that as a Lakers fan and, see LeBron bring it home once. So, at least they did something while he was here. And
I'll take one.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm a Magic fan. I'm right there with you. We would take one. So,
yeah.
Moving on to some other guys, I was just wondering, we talked a little bit before the pod about some guys that kind of have caught your interest around the league on some other teams.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big, even though I'm obviously a Lakers fan, I'm one of my second teams. I have a lot of second teams, but one of them is the Memphis Grizzlies. I just have a ton of fun, especially because they tend to draft the players I like in drafts. So I like to keep tabs on them. This year it was Jaylen Wells. Someone I think I had him lotto or near lotto on my board, and he's way exceeded my expectations as right away as a player who can plug and play, and he's gotten a lot of minutes because of early injuries for the Grizzlies again, but I think he's filled in very, very well, especially for how fresh he is to the NBA. He seems very confident. That the the three is obviously the selling point with Wells, and it was coming into the league, but he's always been, to me, he's had a little more than that as a ball handler and someone that can get to the mid range, get to his spots, especially with how big he is. He's like a really solid 6'8", and once he gets that little bit of handle, can get to his spots, it really opens up a lot for him. So I've enjoyed watching him, and defensively, I thought he's been done a really good job. Where he's got quick hands, he can hang on the perimeter with a lot of guys. Still very thin, so he's going to get bullied to the rim, here and there. But as time goes on, I think that's going to strengthen up for him. So I've been really impressed with him and his teammate as well, with Jake LaRavia. I thought this has been really like a under. I haven't really seen anyone on at least like NBA Twitter, national media, or anything discuss his leap this year. I feel like it's kind of gone under the radar, but to me, it's been really noticeable just watching Grizzly games. Like he's taken big steps forward, especially as a playmaker. Like they've had Jaw out for a while, so they've kind of used him as like a secondary ball handler at times, which has been really impressive. He's making a lot of reads from the mid to high post. He's hitting a lot of cutters. He can keep the dribble alive still, though. He's not just simply doing so from a stationary standpoint. The three, he's always been like a pretty solid 3-point shooter, but better than I expected from him as a prospect. Like I didn't really see this. And yeah, just as a defensively too, like as a low man at the 4, I thought he's done a really good job defensively. He's able to, he doesn't make a ton of plays necessarily, but he's very capable of putting himself in the right positions to make things harder for offensive players. So I've been really impressed with both of them. I think that the Grizzlies continue to just stockpile these guys that could come in and play big minutes, and you feel really comfortable with them doing so. So as much as the injuries suck to their star players, they're probably the team best equipped to handle them. And I think Wells and LaRavia have done a good job.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a team that just drafts winning basketball players, like them and the Thunder, who we may hit on in a minute as well. But these guys just keep. I don't know how they keep finding these guys where they can play some defense, they can hit the dribble, pass, and shoot, they can hit the three, score a little bit, make good decisions. I mean, super rare for guys to be able to just find these guys in the draft over and over again. And on LaRavia, he's definitely an impressive prospect that's now in year 3, kind of came out of his shell a little bit last year, getting the minutes increase from 11 to 23 minutes per game, hitting 34% on 4.5 threes last year, and now up to 39% on half the volume, two threes a game this year, but more efficient from downtown. And then, like you mentioned, just the playmaking. Like he was already kind of a good connector, can throw him out there, and you think he's going to make some good decisions with the ball. Now he's up to 3.5 assists per game with only 1.4 turnovers. So nice little like safe decision maker on that end. And he's just a good plug and play kind of forward in the front court that they can kind of rely on. You can go small with Jaren Jackson at the 5 at times, or just bring him in kind of as Jaren's backup at the 4, and just depending on the matchup. So he's even gotten more efficient now, up to 60% as a scorer, true shooting percentage. So definitely like to see that from LaRavia. And some of his spot ups, some of his PPP ratings on Synergy, he's averaging 1.1 on 71 spot ups, 59th percentile, and pretty good off the ball as well. 1 point per possession on 70 transitions, though not a very high percentile, only 29th. Still decent in terms of just scoring 1 point per possession, and 1.6 on 22 cuts in the 85th percentile. So, solid there. And then Jaylen Wells, I mean, you said it, like just impacting the game right out of the gates. Like he just had a cool story come out with Michael Scotto on Hoops Hype, who interviewed him about being the 39th pick on the Grizzlies, a starter on a top team, ranked tied for second best record in the West. He started 20 out of 25 games. He's played in every game. Ranked among rookies, he ranked second in plus minus, third in points per game. And he was just playing D2 like a couple years ago. from Sonoma State to Washington State, transfer to the NBA draft. Just, he was quoted about he just tries to make simple winning plays, kind of like Jimmy Butler and D Wade growing up. And, he's getting put on the league's best. He's guarding LeBron one game and another star the next as a rookie, a primary defender, starting all these games, taking on the challenge of guarding the other team's best player. And he's efficient on offense. Like he's got a 45, 38, 80 shooting line, able to kind of score efficiently from all over. 0.9 PPP on spot ups, 1.2 points per possession in transition, 1.5 on 20 cuts, 0.94 on 16 ISOs. So he's just, he's able to score with the ball in his hands. He's able to move well off the ball. He's locking down other opposing stars on defense, and he's doing all this as a rookie. I mean, not just a rookie, the 39th pick in the draft. Like, it's about, that's right around the time where the draft kind of falls off, where it's not much different between being an undrafted free agent and getting drafted in terms of like talent outcomes for careers. And the Grizzlies yet again found another winning player that far late in the draft. So shout out to them for their scouting, and shout out to him for showing up and exceeding expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. He's for sure blown away. I was pretty high on him, but I didn't expect as a rookie for him to be putting up numbers and doing what he's doing. So really cool story, and I'm excited to see where his career goes.
No doubt. And speaking of teams that draft good winning basketball players, the Oklahoma City Thunder, you mentioned that, Cason Wallace has really impressed you. And, I don't get how they do it. They just keep, finding smart defenders that with length who can dribble, pass, and shoot, like I mentioned before, and bring a little juice on the ball, on and off the ball, where they can score, they can shoot. Cason himself is very good rated as a pick and roll ball handler, only 23 possessions, but 0.96 points per possession, 73rd percentile. He rates excellent on just 12 cuts, 1.8 points per possession, though, 99th percentile. And then average spot up shooting as well, just about a point per possession on 60 possessions. And just showed that, he has good two-way feel. He'll throw in a pickpocket steal or a chase down an offensive rebound in traffic. Like he's constantly trying to make winning plays. So, what stands out to you about Cason?
Yeah. I mean, he's been just an insane defender to me this year. I mean, he was coming into the league as well. But this year it's really just looked insane to me. He's stripping guys that are way stronger than him, even though he's pretty strong himself. But he's getting guys on the way to the rim. He's blocking shots, like you said. I think he's averaging like 0.7 or 0.8 blocks as a guard. And he's doing so by just timing things really, really well. He reads things defensively. Like he's a step ahead of everyone defensively, it feels like. I mean, the Thunder, I want to say he's probably like a top 2 defender on his team, but the whole Thunder you can probably make an all defensive team out of with Shea and him and Dort and J-Dub and Chet. But he's just really blown me away defensively. He's rebounding at a really high rate because the Thunder have had a ton of center injuries. So they sort of deployed Wallace in this way where he's a de facto rebounder for them, and he's physical enough to do so. So he's really stepped up in that regard, just sort of his role changing and falling into it and doing it really well for a guard. So I've been really impressed. And then offensively, he's really a capable pick and roll runner. Like he's very confident and competent in doing so. He reads things really well. He's somewhat simplistic as a ball handler, but that's okay because he makes so many good decisions. He doesn't need to be like this very complex guy. And the Thunder run such good stuff with great personnel that he's able to get downhill with different screens or moving actions. So, I think he's had to play various different roles, and in each one I thought has exceeded expectations in all of them. So I've been really impressed with him, especially considering he's only, I think, 21 or 22. So it's been, a ton of fun to watch him. This is a great Thunder team.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good note about, like, they're basically employing an all-defensive team. When you mention everyone you mentioned, plus signing Caruso and Hartenstein in the offseason, they have the number one defense this year. I think they had it last year, too, and they somehow added 2 all-league defenders on top of that. They rank first in defensive shooting efficiency and first in forcing turnovers, which is just unfathomable when you have, like, the best defense in the league and an MVP candidate and another 2 all-stars for good measure, or at least all-star caliber players, even though Chet's hurt. You know, you got J Dub. I always confuse the nicknames with J Will and J Dub. I just want to say J Will because of white chocolate or something, but I got to remember who's who when it comes to the nicknames. Can't be making Thunder fans angry over here, but you know, their defense is just insane. So much talent there. You know, shout out to Sam Presti, who's just keeps finding and locating these, you know, good people who are incredible defenders, length, good ball skills, and kind of know what to do on both ends and make winning plays. So, you know, they had that big experience last year, you know, making a pretty good push in the playoffs. Obviously, you know, made it to the conference finals and you know, getting ousted by the Mavs there. But I think that experience plus the additions they made will all be valuable during their kind of path and journey to reaching the ultimate goal of winning it all. And we could very well see it this year. They're definitely going to be, you know, running through the regular season the rest of the way. You know, when you have lost Hartenstein for a stint, you've lost Chet now for a stint, and you're still the best team in the West, the best team in the league by point differential. Like, it's looking good the rest of the way. So, you know, the Thunder are doing something right. And, you know, shout out to Cason Wallace for being a key part of that. And, you know, if unless there's any other prospects or players that, you know, we kind of missed or that you want to hit on or anything you want to plug, I, you know, appreciate you taking the time to hop on the pod today, Stone.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you know, being able to come on here. I love what all you guys do at the Swiss Theory. I love consuming all your guys' content. So yeah, just keep up the great work, and I'm looking forward to whatever you guys have cooking up this cycle.
No doubt. Shout out Switch Theory. Shout out Upside Swings. You can find Stone Hansen on Twitter and as the co-host of Upside Swings. So make sure you do that. Follow his work, and you can find him at report_court is his handle there. So make sure you follow him and check out their work. And, you know, thanks again for taking the time, talking some hoops. Always a fun time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You know, have a good one, so.
You too.